Don't break a rule to save the company money on travel? Okay. This started about 4 years ago or so. Background. I was a regional manager for a manufacturer. My territory was 26 states. I got a car allowance. $700 per month. That was for my car usage for work. For non-drive travel, I could do whatever I want, within reason, but it couldn't exceed X% of sales. Where I live, there are some parts of my territory that I had to drive to. There were no flights available, without significant wasted times connecting. Think, driving to Boston 1 hour, to connect through NY or Philly, and then to Syracuse, New York or Rochester, New York, for any drive over 4 hours. I'd rent a car at the local rental office versus flying. However, the bean counters caught me doing this and reminded me about my car allowance, and I shouldn't be renting cars from home. Malicious compliance. From then on, I would fly to these places. Flying to Rochester, NY, a 5.5 hours drive before, but now I'd drive the 1 hour to Boston. Fly to Detroit 1.5 hours. Connect 1 hour layover to fly to Rochester 1 hour. Have to fly in a day early, and stay a day later. So instead of a one-night trip, it turned into a 3-day trip. Instead of $500 trip, it turned into a $1,500 plus trip. Between flights, extra hotel nights, food, etc. Oh, and the rental car. This went on for 4 years till I recently switched companies. Any travel outside of New England turned into a multiple night trip with flights and hotel, meals, etc. It probably cost the company $10,000 a year in useless extra trip costs. I hope you got the most expensive meals. Had a similar situation at one job. I got mileage for my OWN car use, which was primarily when going down to the Bay Area. My boss called and said I should consider renting a car at the Sacramento airport and driving it down and back, as car rentals were very cheap at the time. I did the math and calculated I would save the company $75, $150 if I did that. I ended up having to explain it to 3 senior staff members individually, none of whom bothered to ask my boss, and finally just told the CFO that if he insisted, I would just keep track of mileage and pocket the savings myself. That finally ended the questioning. I got in trouble for booking a limo for 8 people to get to the airport to fly home, even though it was far cheaper than taxi service for 8. Saved the company and my budget by flying red-eye, booking a cheaper hotel that had free breakfast and skipping lunch. Then they denied my dinner expense because it was a few bucks over their dinner per diem. Fuck 'em. Never flew red-eye again. Stayed at more expensive hotels and maxed every meal per diem with my tip. Per diem is in quotes because it wasn't a true per diem, it was use it or lose it. This is what the manager approval model was meant for. If one of my reports has something like this, I'll verbally approve the exception, then approve the expense report when it hits my inbox. If anyone from the expense approval team lights me up, they'll get an earful about why I have the capability to approve things like this and why they can pound sand. I'll happily have a conversation with their director about how that policy affects the value of my stock shares, and I'll always cover down when my employees make the right choice, even if it violates policy. An expense policy that does not have an exception workflow for when things don't fit the model is a major red flag, signaling the company has reached the point where the iron law of bureaucracy has kicked in and it's time to leave. I'll fight this as long as I can, but if I lose, I'm out. I'll take my talent elsewhere. As an added bonus for you, you racked up all those extra miles and points for your preferred airlines, hotels, and rental car companies. Oh, Not to mention the extra elite qualifying dollars, points and million-miler miles. 2. Not too shabby getting your company to pay for mileage runs. A friend of mine lives a 15 minutes walk from a small airport. 20 kilometers from major airport. Small airport flies into NYC, Boston, Philadelphia and other cities in the area. Flights leave early morning and back late at night. Not the approved airline for his company. Cheaper for the flights than from the major airport. He flies to one of the cities once a week for 1 day at a time. Company said he had to use approved airline. Now he leaves the night before, spends $50, $60 on Uber or taxi to other airport, takes late night flight as first one in the morning would get him there too late. Rents a car in NYC and spends night in hotel. Goes to meetings and takes late night flight home. Uber to home. Now they have 2 Uber bills and a night's accommodation to pay. Plus meals. No questions asked when he submits $1,000 or more expenses. All this to use their approved airline, which is $100, $200 more than the small one a 15 minutes walk from home. Right on, thanks for sharing. I dealt with similar, but I didn't have a car allowance. I had to travel regularly all over Texas and Louisiana. Lived outside Houston at the time. I'd drive and get reimbursed for food, hotel if needed, and IRS mileage on my car. I was told if I wanted to drive I'd have to rent a car as it looked off to get so many miles for my car. I started flying everywhere and rented a car at the destination. Plus parking charges CT the airport. Often ended up staying at hotels because of flight times. Cost them at least 3 times what I was getting reimbursed for previously, but accounting was happy. Similar experience. I used to book cheaper hotels near where I attends conferences. And not rent a car if not necessary, take public transport. And drive myself to the airport and park cheaply instead of getting a shuttle. Until a coworker point out that our company has an annual revenue north of $12 billion. So any saving I try to have is kinda pointless. Did you ever showcase this to them? Particularly to the CFO. So he can see how the policy is costing them more money that's saving? Otherwise, you're not really sticking it to anyone. Why didn't you drive your own car? What is the purpose of the rentals?
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Ericast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.